Good morning, everybody. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I had a super long shift yesterday, and today we are gearing up for doing a double. So I'll be doing about a 13-hour shift here shortly. I've got to ship out this Brilliant Stars booster box because everybody is going crazy for modern sealed product right now. And everyone's going crazy for modern in general. So many modern cards are hitting new all-time highs. I know in our Discord alone, I see so many cards hitting new records. One that was brought up, several that were brought up last night, which I think a lot of this is because of the entire Gengar tax, which I can see that coming, right? I get the gut feeling that Gengar is becoming an extremely popular Pokemon. And I know some people will say, dude, Gengar has always been extremely popular. Gengar has been slept on for a very long time. There's always been a cult following for Gengar cards, but really, Gengar has been slept on for a really, really long time. And it's only recently that I feel like Gengar has been all the rage. So we see Temporal Forces Ghastly, which is on my list of modern cards to buy. That card has skyrocketed. That was $240 for a good long while. A lot of money is pumping back into modern. And at this point, it feels like money is just going to go back and forth from modern to vintage, modern to vintage, modern to vintage. But the difference is every content creator and their mother and grandma is talking about modern. No one's talking about vintage. I have not seen one damn content creator talking about vintage. And so that's where I come in. We also see the Temporal Forces Gengar full art, which that was one of the big reasons why I invested so heavily into Temporal Forces. In hindsight, I wish I would have bought vintage cards that I loved a lot more at the time, because the value at that point in time versus from the cards that I really wanted versus the sealed product and the value that it has now. Vintage absolutely dominated modern. I mean, when we're comparing modern product and vintage Grail cards, vintage absolutely dominated. I have such deep regret that I did not buy more of the cards that I love most versus buying the sealed product that I have. And I'll continue to say that despite my semi-large sealed collection, I still feel like there were a lot of things I could have done differently, and I have a lot of regrets there. But the Temporal Forces full art Gengar. Now, a full art, that card is now popping off, hitting, I think, the $200 plus mark for a modern full art. I mean, the pop is crazy on this thing. It's not rare at all, but people are paying an arm and a leg for it. Really, the same thing with the Ghastly. The Ghastly's not rare. People are paying an arm and a leg for that Ghastly right now. That Ghastly illustration rare. I don't know where these collectors are. I don't think it's you, and I don't think it's me. But somebody somewhere, very well put in my Discord. That was the saying in my Discord. Someone somewhere, shout out to Turtle. Someone somewhere is buying these. It's crazy. And someone somewhere out there is buying 151 being pumped by your local content creator for 100 and something whatever for an ETB. I mean, it's absolutely nuts, guys. There are people, I've had videos sent to me, closets, and I love 151, but people are really taking it to another level. I opened all of my 151. And I have some regret there, but it can't all be about the money. I opened all of my 151. We had a great time opening that product on the channel in all of my streams. But people literally have entire closets, like their whole collecting identity is 151. Like it's insane, some of the stuff I've had sent to me by multiple people. So people are really using Pokemon right now as a full-on investment strategy. I have my stock portfolio, I have my 401k, and I have my Pokemon, and they're all really separate. Pokemon has really outperformed in a big way, but I still believe vintage is the sleeping giant that no one's really talking about. And you guys, a lot of you, unfortunately, will miss any and all opportunities to buy awesome vintage cards, because once these ships sail, they're not coming back to port. A lot of sets I see have exploded. I mean, we could talk about gold stars, but that's always been a hype pump and dump play for a lot of people. And that's why, unfortunately, gold stars are so expensive. They are rare. They are beautiful. I have almost all of them in PSA 9. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm going to be critical of them and their price point. And I think a lot of gold stars are priced way higher than they should be. But I mean, I guess I'm happy for it. A gold star set now is going for like $250,000 for a gold star set in PSA 9. Maybe even more than that at this point. Anyways, let's backtrack a little bit here, back towards modern. Word on the street is that, one, the bots still got Phantasmal Flames. Can anybody clear this up for me? Because I've got mixed information on YouTube and from my Discord. I don't know what's going on, and I'm wondering, like, did the people that set up the bots to buy out all the Phantasmal Flames, did they get it or did they not? Because on one end, I have people saying they cleaned out all the Phantasmal Flames. Where are the Phantasmal pre-orders? When are we going to get those Phantasmal pre-orders? And then on the other hand, I have people saying, no, they did not get them. They got canceled. Pokemon Center did a good job. Hats off to them for making sure these guys did not get all the product. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. But one thing I do know, or at least my Discords let me know, is that the Mega Gengar will not be, I can't say the Mega Gengar won't be in Phantasmal Flames, but word on the street is that we will not be getting a Mega Gengar SIR in Phantasmal Flames. So there will be a killer Charizard. But it sounds like this set really, and it does sound like a Charizard set. I mean, come on. Phantasmal Flames. Flames. It's a Charizard set. Now, I do believe that the Haunter is real. I do believe we are getting a really cool Haunter illustration rare, but I don't think we're getting a Mega Gengar SIR in that set. We will probably get a Mega Gengar down the road. I think that's like the top advice right now. And for like, you know, some of those mid-era sets, the old Megas, like the top advice is buy Megas. So Megas are booming right now because we have this Mega set coming out. It's kind of stupid easy to see the trend there. Buy Megas. Even if you don't like Megas, buy Megas. And that goes back into vintage. Maybe that's what I should be telling people. Buy Megas. Buy the vintage Mega cards. Because Megas are going to skyrocket. But we're seeing a crazy meteoric rise in modern product. I mean, the sealed product is going crazy. We have more pumping of it for content than we've ever seen. But all my years in this hobby, I'm gonna pivot once more. I've pivoted several times into different areas that I like at the time. Whatever suits me the most, whatever's to me makes more sense at the time. And vintage to me right now, despite how high a lot of the prices are getting for vintage cards, I still think at the end of the day, vintage is king, and it's gonna leave a lot of people in the dust. People are gonna wonder, why didn't I buy these cards? Like, these cards are so cool. Why didn't I think of this? You know, a lot of, like, even the non-hollows, there are non-hollow PSA 10 cards that are 20 plus years old that are incredible. People love evolutions, yet the Neo Destiny, Light, Flareon, Vaporeon, Jolteon, those arts are incredible. Non-hollows in PSA 10. And they're a couple $100 each. But still, they're incredible. The artwork is incredible. And I wonder, how can people really put so much emphasis on modern and we just forgotten the history of the hobby and where it came from, basically. And I've said it before, but I want to make this one short, but I fully intend on going balls deep in vintage this year with no reservations. I know people will say that I'm crazy. I know people will say, Orion, these cards are going to crash. I know people will say, Orion, you're going to lose money on this. People have been saying that for a long time. But at the end of the day, I think I'm going to look back and say I did something that not a lot of people are doing. Now, some of the smartest vendors in this hobby, they're collecting vintage, or they already have vintage, right? A lot of longtime vendors have been longtime collectors, and these guys have insane collections, unlike anything you've ever seen. They have all vintage PSA 9, all vintage PSA 10s, ranging from every era, every set. It's incredible. Yet, you ask them their thoughts on modern, and they'll tell you it's worthless. I mean, these things come and go. It's just food for their vendor table. But when they see vintage stuff, they actually have to ask themselves, is this something that I really want to pawn off to the next person? Or play hot potato with, which a lot of vendors do play hot potato with high-end vintage cards. And, I think that's a big reason why a lot of vintage cards don't move, because they've been thrown around so much and there's so many less of them that people are constantly asking a new high price because they're lower in population. Whereas the modern cards, they're getting thrown around at the vendors, and the vendors are kind of like, I already have 3 of these. I don't need this card. I already have several of them. What do you have anything else? I noticed that when I was at Collecticon, this past Collecticon in August. I noticed that I was able to trade my modern cards for vintage cards, and it was a big win for me, honestly. Now, I will say a lot of those modern cards are skyrocketing. Once again, modern is exploding. Right now, modern is hitting new heights. And it makes me think I better hurry up with vintage, because once that demand shifts once again back to vintage and people are buying vintage cards again, we're going to see another absolutely crazy spike in vintage card prices. So I'm trying to cross off as much as I can right now. But yeah, right now, modern is going nuts, and I just think people are not thinking too much about it. They're not looking at the numbers, because I feel like if they were, they would see how common a lot of these cards are, right? 20, 30, 40,000 of them, right? In population of graded copies, right? We look at the Ghastly, and there's a ton of those. Yet it's now fetching, I think, $400, which I just blows my mind. I guess I'm a Timmy for being in such disbelief of modern hype, but the numbers don't align. Modern, it does not make sense, but I guess it doesn't have to make sense. People love it. People love the art. I love the art. I have a lot of modern cards. But if we're going to look at this market right now and we're going to say, you have a couple options here. I mean, it boils down to a couple options. You've got sealed, you've got modern cards, and you got slabs, and you got vintage low PSA 10 modern slabs, and PSA 9, PSA 8, PSA 10 vintage slabs. No one's going after vintage. No one's talking about vintage. It's almost like nobody really cares about it until it's too late and people are like, these cards are way too expensive. I would much rather buy something modern. But vintage really is becoming these cards are really becoming more like antiquities. And I think that's what draws me to them is knowing that, hey, me and 50 other people, me and 100 other people, me and 200 other people in the world own this card. Now, the caveat of that is that there's a smaller market for it. There's a smaller community for it. And it's less relatable, right? So like we can't all technically share our love for vintage, like high-end slabs, because only so many people have them, right? Whereas modern cards, we can all be hyped up about because we can all afford these cards. I just think with how new these cards are, the price points don't make any sense. Ghastly is not even, I mean, I don't think Ghastly is even a year old. It might be, but PSA 10 modern card that's not even a year old, that's an illustration rare, that's not even necessarily like, it's not low pop, it's fairly common. How is that fetching $400? So I'm not upset about it. I'm trying to understand it. And I think that in the long run, vintage is going to outpace everything. And I think I've known that for a long time, but I've had a lot of people doubt it. I've had a lot of people question it, and I've been scrutinized for it. But we're not worried about that anymore. I'm at a point where I'm comfortable with how I want to collect moving forward, and I have no reservations now. I've seen the market fluctuations and the trends. I've seen sealed booster boxes explode. I've seen it all. It doesn't change the fact that all of that stuff is kind of just noise in the grand scheme of some of the nicest vintage artwork we have in the hobby. It is really like owning a piece of historic artwork. Really, that is, I mean, my parents are artists. That's how I look at vintage cards. The hand-drawn art, just, it's amazing. And we're continuously innovating and getting all these cool cards today. And I get so excited for Modern too. Don't get me wrong. I get really excited for Modern too. Like, I talked about the Fantasmal Flames Charizard SIR and how fucking insane it is, right? I know that we're going to have these top chase cards hitting 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I know it's going to happen because look at the Bubble Mew. So we've seen the trends here. We know what's probably going to happen. And I'm not saying and discounting that those cards aren't fucking badass. But what I am saying is, and whether you're doing graded cards or you know, high grade vintage, or just doing binders and raw, it really doesn't matter. Finding either of those vintage mint condition cards or even near mint cards, they're getting damn near impossible to find. You might have all the connections, you might know all the people, but like I'm saying, going out into the wild, going to your local shops and seeing a beautiful vintage card, that just doesn't happen. If you go to the shops, it's like almost all modern. And you might find some lightly played examples of stuff, but you almost never find, you know, pack fresh vintage anymore. It just doesn't happen. You know, stuff from the WotC era, you know, e-readers, EX era, even the Diamond Pearl, these mid eras, you know, level X's. We just talked about that the other day. Anyways, I can't stress enough how there's been so much focus on modern that people are not paying attention. They're not paying attention. And it's gonna hit them like a bag of bricks. I think people feel that way about sealed product, but I would much rather miss out on sealed product rising in price like a stock. I would much rather miss out on that because I don't see this hobby as a business. I mean, I run it. I run a little business. I have my eBay, but it's just really on the side. I don't see Pokemon as a full-time business, and I feel like I'm blessed to not see it that way. A lot of people can really make it a sustainable full-time business. There's a lot of vendors that make vendor POV videos and they travel and they take in cards at 80% and they make a lot of money. They make a lot of money doing it. They make money off of the content and they crush it. But I feel grateful that I have a job that allows me to continue buying what I like and doing the thing that to me makes the most sense. Anyways, I'm sorry for that for that slightly long rant, guys. I think people are missing the point here. I think they're missing the point here. And to all of my fellow collectors out there that are going after vintage stuff still, even at these prices, my hat's off to you, because you are going to find that these cards are going to be absolutely astronomically priced down the road because there are so few of them out there. So, and they'll continue to dwindle. And eventually our modern cards today will kind of become vintage, but those numbers are never going to be as low as the truly vintage older cards. So anyways, that being said, let's talk about one of my favorite cards in my collection that is a vintage card. And we will be talking about modern cards in my collection as well that I like. But I think for the next couple of weeks, months, it's important for me to focus on vintage cards and shed some light on that and why I love these cards so much and why they're so special. Anyways, peace out, guys. Don't get too distracted. Go after what you love, not what everybody else is doing. All right, guys, so here we have a very special card. I recently graded this one myself. As you can see, it has whitening on the bottom and on the corners and on the edges. It honestly looks like it's probably a PSA 5 or PSA 6. But without further ado, boom, here we have it, the Dark Dragonite from Team Rocket Returns, and this is the reverse holo. You can actually get the regular holo out of the theme deck, but this one is much rarer. And apparently it's pretty rare to get a swirl in a reverse holo, and the placement of the swirl is like literally absolutely perfect. I have a buddy that has this, shout out to JD, I have a buddy that has this card in PSA 10, and there's a guy that we know that's actually obsessed with them and has multiple copies. Kind of crazy. I don't think I'm ever going to be that way with any single one card. But anyways, it ended up getting a 7. I'm actually really excited for that because I really did not think this card was going to do that well. I just wanted to get it slabbed. A 7 to be near mint, that's like crazy. I guess they just consider Team Rocket Returns has really poor print quality. So maybe that was a part of the decision in making this card near mint. And to be fair, the front looks really good. Damn, whatever those are, cicadas or whatever. Damn, those things are loud. Sorry about that, guys. Anyways, this card is phenomenal. One of the peak vintage cards in Pokemon, and basically one of the best Dragonites of all time. Now, I really want to get the Fossil Dragonite. The Fossil Dragonite in first edition is definitely on my to-do list, and getting that card in Unlimited would be smart too. One thing about Unlimited versus first edition is a lot of Unlimited cards are actually lower pop than their first edition counterpart, which is kind of crazy. But you can see the reverse holo there with all of the energy symbols, and then that gnarly swirl by the tail. I mean, it literally could not be better swirl placement. But I love everything about this card, from the gold lettering of the reverse holo to the EX Team Rocket Returns stamp, to the moon in the background and the clouds, and the aggressive look of Dragonite. I mean, it really doesn't get much better than that. Claw swipe, double wing attack, dark trance. This is a sick card. And honestly, the centering was pretty good, and the front is pretty damn clean. So maybe that's why they gave it a 7 at the end of the day. It's not too bad. But yeah, I did not think it was going to do this well. Team Rocket Returns cards are super low pop in PSA 10. I know that the Snorlax is a really big one. Speaking of, I would really love a first edition Jungle Snorlax. Probably in a PSA 9, because PSA 10 is crazy. And it's wild. Like, a lot of those older WotC sets, like, they don't get any love. Dude, PSA 10 first edition Flareon is $3,000. How is that card only $3,000? It's extremely low pop. Quality control was really tough with Jungle, especially first edition Jungle. I just think people are not seeing the obvious signs that Vintage is still, honestly, a lot of it is still really, really undervalued, underpriced, and underappreciated. And I think in the long run, it's going to prevail. I mean, if we're really going to compare and say what's going to do better, it should, even if it doesn't end up being vintage, it really should be vintage. God, that swirl is so nice. But yeah, this was the one card I wanted to talk about today. And you guys know that I have PSA 10 vintage Grails and PSA 9 Grails, and I could talk about those, but I also want to talk about the cards that I've graded myself. And I graded this myself, and we have a huge gradable stack. I'm a little worried about sending it in because a lot of the cards are going to be like PSA 5 to PSA 7, but I think I'm still going to do it just to go to show that it's worth grading almost any nice vintage cards right now. But yeah, this card is absolutely sick. The colors are beautiful. The dark type with Dragonite looks so freaking good. There's so many cards I want to go after right now, and I can only do so much. You know, one of the biggest cards I got was the Skyridge Gengar, and I'm still in shock and disbelief that I own a card that there's 95 of them in the world, and it's as popular as they come. I mean, Gengar is super, super popular right now. There is such a thing as the Gengar tax and that demand. So, and I feel the same way about Dragonite. Dragonite's really, really sick. Not so much a fan of the new Dragonite artwork we're getting. It looks kind of goofy for the modern stuff. But anyways, I think Dragonite is goated, and this card makes me want to collect several other Dragonite cards. The whole like species collecting thing, like I definitely get an itch for a certain Pokemon when I have it in another card. It makes me want to get several other variants and different cards of that same Pokemon. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy and have a fantastic day. Stay tuned for tomorrow.